What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Big Five Pod, episode number 113. I'm, of course, co-host Kyle Morello. Next to me, co-host Jay Copestick. Cope, so much to get into. Second episode of March here. How you feeling?
Great, Kyle. It's March. Um, am I tired? Sure, but that's why coffee exists. I probably shouldn't. I take no pride in admitting this, but those Ghost energy drinks quite good.
Oh,
They
brother.
they certainly keep me running. I'm gonna keep a running tally of miles traveled this week, starting with yesterday, which I believe I'm about 350 if you include the drive up from Washington D.C. and back. I think I took the longer scenic route on the way home. I took the Bay Bridge back through the backwoods in Delaware. So
Okay. I know
been a
about that,
great
yeah.
been a great week. We can talk at the end where I'll be after we've discussed the conference tournaments. But it's March. If I'm gonna put miles on the car and put wear and tear on my body and sacrifice sleep, it's gonna be this month. I'm not gonna do it in October. Not gonna do it in August. I'm gonna do it now. This is March. Already delivers. It's already delivering. It always does. I have on my TV here. We just saw Drexel, no, excuse me, Delaware, who's the 12 seed, just upset number 1,000.
Yeah.
They lost 11 of 12 games to end the regular season. They then beat Stony Brook. I believe it was Campbell who they beat. They really mopped the floor with a good William and Mary team that had a really good season, put 100 on them, and they just knocked off number one seed Towson. I think Delaware's figured it out, Kyle. You just if you just don't miss from three, I think you give yourself a pretty good chance.
What a wild concept.
Yeah, crazy. Tonight's actually like a light day basketball wise. I mean, we didn't have any day games. Everything started at 6. You have the West Coast games on, which I will be up for the 11:30 game. Very, very excited for that. But this is the
Oh, you
best
wonder
time of
why
the
you're
year.
so tired.
That's
But I
look,
get
look.
it. I
I-
get it. I was too last night with the
You want me to sleep?
Pepperdine game. Yeah.
Should I be asleep
No, we'll sleep in May.
for that? Yeah, I'll sleep. I'll sleep when it's done. I'll sleep when it's over. Got a hell of a week planned, but this is the best time of the year, Kyle. This is the best time of the year. And then even on a non-basketball note, NFL free agency started. Always love when the Schefter and the Rappaport tweets light up your phone.
Yep.
So, what a time! This is
What time?
really underrated sports week. I don't know. I like free agency when people move and the news rolls in and it's like very very active on Twitter. So great week, but
Great
the best
week.
month for hoops. It's delivering already,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna be spending a lot of money uh, in transit and gas this week.
Probably you and me both. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the NFL. We're not going to get into that right now. We got too much college basketball to go over. But one thing before we get to you, Cope, for that Delaware note, the game against Stony Brook, which was the 12-13 game, I think, in the CAA, that was their closest game so far of the tournament. 4-point win over Stony Brook, 17-point win over Campbell, 22-point win over William and Mary, and then I don't remember what the exact final score was of this past game. I think it was 9 or 10 against Towson that we just finished watching. But yeah, that's wild. So shout out to the Blue Hens. When Drexel's not doing well, I'll root for the Blue Hens because Shelby, my girlfriend, went to Delaware, so gotta pull for them. But
In
all
the
right,
most
Cope.
beautiful way possible, this sport, you can't make any sense of it.
No, why would
Great.
you? Why
It's
would
great.
you? Listen, you
Doesn't
don't
make
need
any sense.
it. You will understand it less, I think, if you try to make sense of it than if you don't, and just let it be. It is what it is, and not in like a negative sense. It's the beautiful game. Let it play out how it'll play out. And that's that. All right, Cope. We got a lot to get into though, so why don't we start with your quick hitters? I know you got that basketball handy, so pull that bad boy out. We got a couple things here before we get into, as you call it, the meat and potatoes of the episode. So let's hear it. Cope's quick hitters.
Yeah, so one note to make of, and then I'm going to touch on some things that happened in the last week. So we spend the bulk of our time on conference tournaments. So I was at Hagan Arena last Wednesday night. Eric Reynolds II is now the all-time leading scorer in the history of St. Joseph's men's basketball. Surpassed the 2,094 point mark that Jameer Nelson set some 2 decades ago. Did it in front of the home crowd. I was there against St. Bonaventure, was thinking, hey, if maybe he goes off for 30, he can do it then. Then they went to Ford. St. Joe's went to Fordham. I know Aaron Bracey, Jeff Nyberg, a couple guys were up there to see maybe if he broke it at historic Rose Hill Gym. He came just short of doing it there to the point he only needed 3 points at Hagan Arena to do it. On senior night, he had so many friends and family from his hometown there to see that ovation. He got that many people there for him, and then he made us wait almost the entire first half. I'm sitting next to Jeff Nyberg and Aaron Bracey, and the two of us. I mean, we must have deleted 30 videos trying to get the perfect angle of the last shot, or excuse me, the shot that broke the record. But a terrific game for St. Joseph's nonetheless. They won their fifth straight game doing that, and Eric Reynolds, fittingly, a three-pointer, mere feet away from Jameer Nelson, the guy who set the record, who was wearing a T-shirt that said "Passing the Torch." Jameer Nelson, there was a picture of him on the shirt of him throwing a pass to a picture of Eric Reynolds, who was ready to catch and shoot. All around a great night. The gym went crazy when it happened. They got a picture afterwards, and Jameer Nelson had some nice words to say to Eric Reynolds. But all around a great night, not only for Eric Reynolds, but for the St. Joseph's men's basketball program, because that's a guy in Eric Reynolds who came to St. Joseph's after they had won 11 games total in Billy Lang's first 2 years. He never wavered at all with the rebuild that went on as they gradually got better. He lost, he got better. He is what college sports and college basketball is. It's what makes the sport great. Is guys like him see how much they grow, completely change the direction of a program, attract people there, make it a destination spot. He's what's right with college athletics. So a salute to Eric Reynolds, but a great night for the fans, for the program, for the university. That was really, really cool to be there for and witness. Really historic night in the Big Five, Kyle.
Yeah.
Let's touch on a couple things going on from last week. Speaking of St. Joe's, Kyle, those Hawks went to the newly renovated John Glazer Arena for the first time since it was redone. That happened to be Fran Dunphy's final game, regular season game, final potentially Big Five game. We'll get into maybe it's not the last. So essentially a sold out Glazer Arena. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in the building stated that Saturday, March 8th will be known as Fran Dunphy Day across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. How cool is that to have the mayor there declare a day for Fran Dunphy? And in a game that it felt like the basketball gods certainly had something to do with it. You ever hear, Kyle, the story of Nike? Like Nike is the god of winning, and if you saw the god of winning on the opposite sideline of yours, you knew you were screwed. That I think is what this game was. Not to take away anything from LaSalle because they played very well. Corey McKeithen was awesome. Deuce Jones was great, but I think a very fitting way for Mr. Big Five to go out is on the final day to put a stop to a red hot St. Joe's team and a red hot Big Five team. So fitting way for Mr. Big Five to go out. Glazer Arena had some really good atmospheres. People were excited to be there for a good chunk of the season. And for them to see that and have that send off for Fran Dunphy is really something. So I'm not going to say congrats on a great career just yet because it's not over and you don't know what could happen. Crazier things have happened, Kyle.
Yeah.
So a great regular season finale for LaSalle, but potentially there's more, but a very fitting, just the stars aligned here. This was, I think the basketball gods had their hands all over this one, making sure Fran Dunphy got sent out the right way. Next, really quickly going to touch on, hey, how about 3 straight for Temple
Yeah.
going into the conference tournament, where if I remember correctly, Kyle, I think they went on quite the tear last year when nobody expected them to. They had lost 6 straight. They've now won 3 straight heading into the conference tournament. They beat a really, really good North Texas team who's the number 2 seed in the AAC tournament. Very happy for the seniors on this Temple team. Shane Dezzoni, Steve Settle was really good in the win against North Texas this week. Also earlier in the week at Tulsa. Nice to have him back after he missed a game with an illness last week against South Florida. So really good win. Not only, the North Texas game for Temple, but they've struggled on the road. Even though Tulsa's not very good, they did play a good game for the most part against Tulsa, beat them at their place. So 3 straight wins for the Owls. They head in the conference tournament. So with that, Kyle, couple tidbits here, and then we'll get into some conference tournaments.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. First and foremost, Cope, we do have to talk about some unfortunate news that actually just came out today, of the day of this recording, and that is that Penn is parting ways with Steve Donahue after 9 seasons with the team. Of course, one of those in between there was the 2021 Ivy League season, which they didn't play. So he was there for 10 years. They only played 9 seasons, but regardless, a 131 and 130 record, one tournament appearance, obviously one Ivy League title, and some good things and some bad things. Obviously, the one that's fresh in our minds right now is an 8-19 season overall, and tying up the series with them for the first time since 1905, which I want to credit Jonathan Tannenwald with that because he gave us that nugget on our spaces on Sunday night and leading up to this matchup as well. But yeah, Cope, the first time in 120 years that this series is now tied. The last time, according to Jonathan, was when it was 3-3 in 1905. So been quite a while since the series has been tied. So there's that factor. There's one tournament appearance in 9 seasons, about a 500 record, and a downward trend the last couple of years, especially for this Penn team. So it's been troubling. I think of the big five teams that we could see letting go of their coaches, this is probably one of the two that we were, I would say, expecting. The other one's still TBD. And I think that's Villanova if you didn't pick up on that. But it's definitely disappointing, Cope. I think Steve Donahue, first and foremost, is a very nice guy, a very awesome guy. Just in press conferences that we've seen the last few years and uh, his demeanor on the sidelines and talking to media and everything like that seems like a really good person. Also seemed like a really good basketball coach. So it's unfortunate that things did not go his way and Penn's way the last few years, but ultimately losing does come at a price, and they have not been doing a ton of winning, especially the last couple of years, but even a little bit before that, at least getting it done when it matters the most in the month of March. So Penn and Steve Donahue were done after 9 years. Cope, what are your reactions to this news?
Unfortunately, I think there was writing on the wall here, and you could see this coming. Uh, Penn athletic director Alana Wren, she's relatively new, so to have any time that happens, everything is kind of on the table. But when you look at the fact that Steve Donahue's made one tournament that came in 2018, which is a long time ago, he has his worst season here. 11-18 last year, 8-19 this year, uh, 7-21 the last 2 years in Ivy League play. It's just not good enough, Kyle. It's just not, and it's really unfortunate that that has to be the case. But it's just not good enough. And I think Penn is a place that people like want to be. I think this is a storied program that coaches would want to be at. They have some really good candidates that I'll get into, but I think Steve Donahue, like you said, he's a very, very classy stand-up guy. I happen to think he's a very good basketball coach as well. Very analytically driven, X and O wise, very, very good, really, really good. And I'm a little shocked that this didn't work out. He's a guy that's from this area. He's an Ursinus alum. He coached at Penn when, as an assistant under Fran Dunphy. He had been really successful at Cornell. He had coached at Boston College, which is really an impossible place to win. But I mean, he's been a guy that has coached at high academic institutions before, and he got Cornell to a Sweet 16. So although I'm shocked that this didn't work out because he's a nice guy, great coach. The consistency was not there. When they had Jordan Dingle and they had Clark Slackert, unfortunately, there's just not an NCAA tournament appearance to show for it with the talent that they had. And, for him to have the 2 years he had the past 2 seasons and then have his worst season this year, it's a bottom line business, Kyle, and he just wasn't getting it done. One appearance in the 10 years that he had been there. And honestly, Kyle, this like Penn just has not been all that successful since Fran Dunphy left. Since 2006, which was Fran Dunphy's last season, Penn has made two NCAA tournaments. So for for one reason or another, Jerome Allen kind of left the program in shambles, and Steve Donahue had some picking up to do and did an admirable job. But the winning, it just wasn't here. So it's unfortunate that this didn't work out. I think a lot of people thought that this would work out given Donahue's connections to Philadelphia, but Penn as well. So unfortunate that it didn't happen. But let's look to some candidates now. A couple guys I'll throw out there. I think number one has to be Dave Klatsky at NYU. Violets have been a dominant D3 program since he's been there. He created shot quality, really, really analytically driven basketball mind. So I think that's the guy that you have to look for. Penn alum, Matt Langle, another Penn alum, could want the job. Ira Bowman, who's on the bench at Auburn, another Penn alum. Auburn team, Kyle, pretty good.
Pretty good.
So there's there's some names here to look at. I saw Fran McCaffrey thrown around at Iowa. Fran McCaffrey's a Penn guy. He's older. He's from West Oak Lane. He went to LaSalle College High School. We'll see. I think that's maybe a bit
It's
of
a
a
little bit of
stretch.
a reach. Yeah.
But I like Dave Klatsky a lot. Go outside the box. He's a Penn alum, really good at the D3 level, a high academic institution at that college at NYU. So there's going to be options here. I think there's a job that people want. There's some really good alumni that are out there. I believe they will make a good hire. We will see who that is. But as far as Steve Donahue goes, it's unfortunate it did not work out. But at the end of the day, Kyle, you're based on results. This is a profession that's based on winning. And there just wasn't too much of that, especially the last 2 years. Again, Alana Wren is new, and she's seen essentially two of the worst seasons that Steve Donahue has had, unfortunately, under her watch, which is why this move is made. So, best of luck to Steve Donahue. Good dude. I think he's a good basketball coach. It's just unfortunate that this did not work out.
Very unfortunate, Cope. And yeah, like you said, I mean, when it's a new AD coming in and the sample size that they have to work with under your regime is a couple of losing seasons, unfortunately, they got to make a choice. And I can't say I blame her, but it's unfortunate nonetheless. So hopefully they can hire a good replacement. I think Langle would be a good one. I think Klatsky would be a really good one too. Bowman, obviously, you mentioned Auburn. Very good if you're not following. Fran McCaffrey's not realistic. I think we can throw out the window. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he'll want to come home for some reason. But he's also coaching at a Big Ten school that they've had a little bit of success too in his tenure there. So I don't see that. But there's definitely options. It is a historic Ivy League program, so there will be plenty of options. That's for sure. All right, Cope. We're not going to go too far down Market Street for this next little news here because Drexel unfortunately eliminated from the CAA tournament and their season is over as well after a 82-76 defeat to number one seed Towson on Sunday. This after beating 9 seed Elon 91-74 on Saturday. That game, they were firing all cylinders. Jason Drake and Kobe McGee combined for 49 points in that one. There was one stretch where Elon shortened the gap to about, I think it was 11 or 10 points, but for the most part, Drexel dominated that one and it showed in the final score as well. Now the Towson game you were at, so I'll let you get into a little bit, but just to set it up, obviously number one seed, and we've talked about this matchup last week where they played Towson really close the first two matches of the year. Hard to beat a team three times in a season, and while they weren't always in striking distance in this game, they were down 9 at halftime. I think they were down 11 or 12 with 7, 8 minutes left in this game, Cope. They cut the lead down to one late, and they had a chance to take the lead. Unfortunately, they could not stop Dylan Williamson, who had 24 of his 32 points in the second half, 6 3-pointers in the second half. Unfortunately, they were without Victor Panoff in this one, which could have helped them tremendously. But it was an unfortunate way to go out for Drexel, but I think an impressive showing this season overall. I wish we didn't have to take moral victories with the season ending, of course, but I still think overall a positive year. Hopefully they can use this to build on next year. But Cope, sticking with these two games down in DC, I know you were at one of them, the loss to Towson, but what do you make of this end of the season for Drexel?
Yeah, it's unfortunate it went out the way it did, but this was a game that they played against Towson that was pretty much a summation of their entire season. So I want to touch on the Elon game very quickly. Elon cut that lead to single digits at one point in the second half.
Okay.
They put the press on Drexel. They were playing with their hair on fire, realizing, hey, season's on the line. We have a big deficit. Drexel did turn the ball over on the press. But besides that, Kyle, besides maybe like an 8, 9 minute spurt somewhere in there, the other 31, 32 minutes of this game, Drexel was dominant. They were making shots. Kobe McGee was awesome. Deuce Drake was awesome making shots. They were firing away from three. They go up 20 some at halftime. So really good showing from them in that game. And when they played a bunch of close games all season, nice to see them pull away a little bit. They knocked down a bunch of shots. They play slow. It's in the mud. Games aren't very high scoring, but to see them put up 91 was certainly impressive, even though Elon had to speed up the pace of the game, putting on the press to try and get back in it. But going to the Towson game, right off the bat, they're down 6-0. There's some serious shot making on this Towson team. They lost to Delaware today. They're not going to be able to play in the CAA championship game. Tyler Tejada, right off the bat, CAA Player of the Year, bang, three quick ones, three quick buckets. It's 6-0. And even though they're down 9 at halftime, in the second half, they're down as many as 15, Kyle. This Drexel team finds their way in every single game. You ever see that meme of The Simpsons where Mo throws the drunk guy out of his bar and then he ends up in the back door as Mo's like dusting his hands off? That's literally what this Drexel team is. It's like gum on your shoe. They don't go away. The resolve is so impressive with them. Down 15 in the second half, surviving one of the best shot making performances I've ever seen anybody put up in Dylan Williamson. 24 in the second half, had 6 threes in the second half. He had 10, he scored 8 in the first half. He had 10 in the first 5 minutes of the second half. They're able to survive that. They're able to have the ball in their hands with under a minute left with a chance to go ahead and put this game away and win. Offensive rebounding, though, there's been times where on the free throw line, off a missed free throw, it's hurt them. I was at the UNC Wilmington game. It certainly hurt them in that game. It hurt them again here, but just rebounding in general. Playing without Victor Panoff, who manned the 4 spot for them all season. William Garcia Adjden gets the start. And Shane Blakeney was playing so well. He had 24 points in this game, Kyle. His best game in a Drexel uniform scoring-wise. The defense going to be there with him, and they really needed his scoring in this one to stay in it. But because he was playing so well, he was in the game instead of William Garcia Adjden. And Shane Blakeney, great athlete, nice size for his position, but when you put a guy like William in there, a little longer, or probably just, has a length very similar to Shane Blakeney, a little bit taller, gives you a little more size. And with Shane Blakeney in there, not that he's a bad rebounder by any means, but they're just not as big as they could be. And they got out rebounded 40-28, 17-8 on the offensive glass, 16 second chance points for Towson. Drexel got burned a couple times late in the second half on some key possessions where Cole Hargrove had a block or there was a missed shot, just couldn't corral it and put it away. But impressive resolve from these guys. 18 wins, Kyle. That's the second most in the Zach Spiker era. They outperformed their Ken Pom preseason rank by 33 spots. Picked 11th in the preseason poll in the CAA. Really dominant win in their first tournament game against Eli, and then they gave the number 1 seed to Towson Tigers all that they could handle. So impressed by this group. That resolve is big time in here. I know there's a very long answer to your question, but here's how I'm going to answer the question that you asked me. Zach Spiker after the game, this quote, this sums up exactly what you asked me. He said, I couldn't say this in past years, but there's not a game where this team didn't bring it this year.
Yeah.
Multiple times. You look at the Temple game, the UNC Wilmington game I was at, even the Hampton game just recently. They're down, but they're never out. They find ways to claw back into games, to win, to make it close at the end, give themselves a chance. Although the ball didn't bounce their way every time, it was their fight and their resolve from a group that nobody expected anything from that put them in the position that they did. The fact that they're over 500, they won as many games they did. I think it's a pretty damn good coaching job by Zach Spiker and his staff. Look at how much better guys got from last year to this year as the season went on. Not much was expected of these guys, and I think they certainly surpassed that.
Yeah, and Cope, even to your point about coming back in games, the LaSalle game too, if you remember, they were down 12 at halftime, I think, maybe 14, came all the way back and cut that to a 2-point lead. I actually think they led late in that game as well too. So this team was always fighting. They were always climbing their way back into games and they were down. 18 wins for this group. I would not have said that going into this year, so I'm impressed by them, Cope. Hopefully, a lot of those guys stick around. I know, obviously, with the NIL and the transfer portal, things can get a little crazy, but hopefully they stick around, keep it going next year. All right, that was one conference tournament that unfortunately has ended for a Big Five team. Now let's get into the three that remain, Cope. And this is one of our favorite times of year. This is phase three of the season. Only one more left after this, which of course we know all about that. So, why don't we get into the conference tournament with two teams in it first? Why don't we go to the A10? If you don't know where everyone finished, St. Joe's is the 6th seed and LaSalle is the 14th seed. So, Cope, as you alluded to earlier, LaSalle will be taking on 11th seeded UMass on Thursday in that first round game. The winner of that will face St. Joe's, the 6th seed, on Friday. I believe that game would be at 7:30 down in DC. So, very interesting that these two teams could play for a fourth time this season. A couple things I want to go over. We'll start with LaSalle first. Obviously, their sole focus is on winning this UMass game. They know their matchup. They have to win this to keep their season going. We can worry about a potential matchup with St. Joe's later. We can talk about St. Joe's tournament outlook later. But for right now, for LaSalle, going into Thursday, what do they have to do to beat this UMass team in their last A10 tournament, might I add?
Well, you got to stop Rasul Diggins. That guy can get going in a hurry. Actually, a former St. Joe's commit from Philly, from Archbishop Wood. Dude's a bucket. Dude's an absolute bucket. So you certainly got to stop him. This isn't a UMass team that shoots the three ball well. And I mean, UMass got smoked against Loyola. So you kind of have two teams on opposite ends here. You have LaSalle plays a game of their season, beating St. Joe's, and UMass gets spanked at home in their last home A10 game at the Mullins Center against Loyola Chicago. So got to find a way to make it as inefficient as possible for Rasul Diggins. Got to try and keep this team off the glass. Hopefully, Meech Lilly can be available for this and be as healthy as he can be. I don't know how realistic that is at this point in the season, but Mac Etienne has been playing well. They're going to need him to rebound for sure. So got to keep his team off the offensive glass. Offensively, been a struggle for them. They really don't shoot that well. So rebound, and I think they're going to set themselves up pretty good here. Although when they went up to UMass, it was not great for LaSalle. They got blown out when they went up to Amherst. So got a rebound, but this isn't a great offensive team. And I think besides that, look, they just played the best game they had. They saw one go through the net after losing a bunch in a row. I think there's a chance that LaSalle can sneak this one out, playing with Brand Dumpy's career on the line. So this is a game I think they can win. I do. But UMass can be pissed off because they really got their doors blown off by Loyola on Saturday. A game that if they had won, they could have kept Loyola potentially out of that double bye scenario, or at least maybe push them back a spot. But I like LaSalle's chance in this one, Kyle. I really do. The way if they play anything like they did Saturday, they're going to win this game and somehow, some way, set up a freaking fourth meeting with St. Joe's.
Man, would that be funny? Yeah, I think the talent's there to be able to beat this UMass team. I don't think UMass is that much more talented, if any more talented than LaSalle. I know they're both kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum of where they ended their season, as you mentioned, but I could definitely see a world where LaSalle wins this game. And then, like you mentioned, it would set up a fourth matchup with St. Joe's. Obviously, St. Joe's won the first two, including the Big Five championship, was the first one of those. And then LaSalle winning on Fran Dunphy Day on Saturday. This, I don't think would go the same way, Cope. I'm going to be honest. I think that St. Joe's would win this one, though I think LaSalle would put up a heck of a fight. But you take out the backdrop of Glazier, a packed Glazier, might I add, Fran Dunphy Day, Senior Day for LaSalle, and all of those factors going with it, and you put them on a neutral floor. St. Joe's I mean, both teams essentially have the same fighting chance to make it to the tournament and the championship, but obviously, if you're talking in terms of talent and expectations, St. Joe's is far ahead of where LaSalle is at this rate. But being that it's the conference tournament, I mean, we just saw what happened with Delaware. Anything can happen, but I I think St. Joe's will get by them in this game, which would set up a matchup with Dayton on Friday. And listen, St. Joe's played Dayton close at their house. Was that at their house? Am I mistaken right
Yes,
now?
and
Yes.
they had to come back for that too.
Yes. So lost by five, 77-72 in that one. Dayton and St. Joe's, I think, have been pretty similarly talented teams at this point in the year. Um, Certainly, Ken Palm agrees with that evaluation of that. Although Dayton coming off a very nice win against VCU, so tough matchup. I don't think it's one that I would fear as in years past. I think there's been much better Dayton teams than this one, and I think St. Joe's, despite the loss to LaSalle, has been playing really good basketball since beginning of February. So they could win that, and then that would even set up a matchup potentially with either George Washington if they can get through George Mason, or George Mason in the A10 semis on Saturday. Cope, a lot of possibilities here, and we talked about it on Spaces on Sunday. I know you were driving, but this is a St. Joe's team that I think there's only one team that I can definitively say is more talented than them in the Atlantic 10, and that would be VCU. I think they can get there to play VCU in the finals, and you never know what could happen. Obviously, there's a lot they need to take care of before that point. But where do you think this team can go in this tournament, and can they get to that final game on Sunday with a chance to make the NCAA tournament?
I certainly think they can. I get the LaSalle loss might have killed some momentum for them having going into that game winning five straight, but I still think that they can make that championship game and challenge for a bid. So I think maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that they didn't get the double bye because now you get a game against a UMass team or a LaSalle team that you want some revenge on to have a get right spot here. To get one game under your belt, get the conference tournament jitters out of the way, so to speak, and then give yourself a chance against Dayton. So I don't think that's the worst thing in the world for them. And don't forget, Kyle, I was at the A10 tournament last year. All four teams that got a double bye: Richmond, Loyola Chicago, UMass, all went down. Dayton,
Dayton, I was
all
just
went
about to
down on
say.
their first day that they played. All four of the double bye teams, all four of the top seeds lost on their first day. So I think it's good that this team can get a game under their belt. And if they win, I think they can give Dayton a game. I think they can beat them. I think they can beat George Mason and get to that last game and potentially somebody does the job for you against VCU. But Dayton will be tough, who just, by the way, went into the Siegel Center and won, which I don't think VCU had lost a home game all year. That was their first one that they had lost on senior day against Dayton. So there's going to be, like, you have to win the first game, and there's going to be three tough ones after that. But I think that this team can get hot. They made the semis last year and almost beat VCU and put themselves in the championship game. I think there's a path for this team to certainly get in. So it's not going to be easy. They're going to have to win four games in 4 days. But I think this team has the most ability, as good as VCU is, and they've been great all season. I believe they deserve to make the tournament. This St. Joe's team, when they're hot, their A game is as good as anybody's in this conference.
Yep.
And because of that, they're certainly a wild card to win this thing and cut the nets down. We'll see if it happens because they're going to need to make shots for 4 straight days. But if there's a team that can do it in this conference, I think it's them. Regardless of the LaSalle loss, Kyle, they still have a very good chance to win this conference tournament, I think.
100% agree. And like I said, I don't think besides VCU, I don't think there's a more talented team in this conference than St. Joe's. The consistency we've talked about plenty on this podcast. Will they show the best versions of themselves throughout these games and potential games in this tournament? Remains to be seen, but I think they've proven outside of the LaSalle game, which, by the way, I don't think they were never going to win that game. They, like you said, like the basketball gods were not going to let Fran Dunphy lose his final Big Five game, his final Philadelphia game at home. They declared it Fran Dunphy Day. Not that they didn't earn that themselves, but I don't know. I think that was destiny. I don't think if you're St. Joe's, you're like mad at that. First of all, they came back. They were down double digits in this game in the second half, and they came back. So it's not like they just laid over and let LaSalle win. They did not. But before that, they'd been playing really good basketball. So I think they've figured it out, and we'll see if they keep that going. It could set up for disappointment especially if they lose their first game against either UMass or LaSalle again. But certainly this team is capable. No doubts about that. Will they do it? To be determined. All right, Cope. We'll go to the AAC tournament now. We're at Temple, going back down to Dickies Arena, I believe for the last time they're having this tournament there, which thank goodness it never needed to be there. I know SMU used to be in the conference and they played in, the Dallas Fort Worth area, but get out of Dickies Arena. I don't, Cope, I don't know where they're going next. I don't know if you know, but I guess
They
to be
haven't
announced.
decided yet.
Yeah. Plenty of options that are not Dickies Arena in Fort Worth,
Anything is
Texas,
better.
which
Anything
is
is
just
better.
used for bull riding, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
You might as well play the AAC tournament in like a morgue if you're going to have it at Dickies Arena again. I mean, Jesus.
correct. And also, well, now there's more Texas teams than in years past, but it used to be it was just SMU that was around there. So anyway, back from our rambling. Temple also, besides the ugly arena and the lack of population there, they have not fared particularly well there. Outside of last year, where of course they made that run to the finals, which was excellent. But this year they're the 7th seed. They will play 10th seeded Tulsa on Thursday. The winner of that game will play North Texas on Friday with a chance to get to the semifinal, where they would play presumably UAB, but to be determined, of course, there as well. So Cope, I do think they beat Tulsa. They just beat them recently. I know they lost to them at the Liacouras Center in February, but that was the one game Mashburn played in the last 10 where he was 6 of 20 from the field, very clearly still banged up. So I don't want to say I'll give them a pass for that, but they should have won that game anyway. But different circumstances, I think they definitely got their revenge a little bit when they visited Tulsa a couple games ago. And now they'll have a chance to win the rubber game in this season series with them. Hopefully, move on to play North Texas and a team that they just beat at their home floor on Sunday. So while 4 games ago things weren't looking great for Temple, they've now won 3 in a row. I'm not going to say they have a favorable matchup on their side of the bracket in the American, but I do think there's some semblance of light for a chance that they can make a run to the semifinals, at least. Obviously, they would have to get past a very good North Texas team. I'm not discounting them at all, of course, but Cope, what do you think Temple can do in this American tournament, the last one at Dickies Arena?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think they're going to make a run to the finals again. I do think they will beat Tulsa. Was really impressed with the win they had this past weekend. They held Dwan Odom to, I mean, they shut him out for most of this game. They shut out Tulsa's leading scorer for most of this game. Zion Stanford was awesome. Put up one of his, if not his best game, not only just this season, but in a Temple uniform. Steve Settle came back, was really good in that game. So I do think they'll get past Tulsa, and then they're going to have to play North Texas for the second time in less than a week, which you're not at the Liacouras Center where they've had a lot of success. You have to go down to, I guess you can call it the Mean Greens turf if you really want to call it that. I don't know how far off the top of my head. I know North Texas is on the plains. I don't think it's particularly close
Gonna look it up right now.
to Fort Worth. I mean, they're same state, but I think it's quite the trek to get down there. But this team's going to be pissed off. They just went up to the Liacouras Center for the first time ever. They lost. Temple played very well, very gritty win for them. Are they going to be able to do that away from home? That's my question for them. If they get past North Texas, I don't think that they'll beat UAB, but I think their ceiling is here that they're able to pick off North Texas again, and I think there's a good.
37 minutes.
That's it.
39 miles, 37 minutes.
Oh
That's of right
man,
now, of
I
course, on Google Maps, but 39 miles is your answer to that
yeah,
question.
sorry, I don't, I'm not really too familiar with the geography
No,
of
that's okay. So
Texas.
listen, if you think so Dallas is here and
Yeah,
Fort Worth is here, Denton, Texas, where that is up here. So it's like a triangle.
okay, gotcha.
So I would say that it is, I don't know if I'd say it's in the Dallas Fort Worth area. I guess it's kind of in the potentially a suburb of the Dallas Fort Worth area. But anyway, yeah, more on their turf than anybody else in the country.
Okay, fair. So I think at most they pick off North Texas second time, but I do believe that they'll beat Tulsa. and then they'll bow out here, unfortunately, to North Texas. I think it's going to be really tough without Jamal Mashburn again to have to play this team for the second time in a week. They're going to be pissed off. Are they going to be able to have the game that they did, like they did Sunday? Because that was a great win on Senior Day. It was deserved for these Owls, but I don't think they're going to be able to have lightning strike twice in a week here. So I think they'll win the first game, which is great, but I don't foresee a run to the championship game like they went on last season.
No, I don't either. Not that I think it's out of the realm of possibilities. Of course, the one X factor in this, and I don't think there's a realistic scenario, at least in my mind. I don't have any information to or sources to back this up, but if for whatever reason they got Jamal Mashburn Jr. back, obviously that changes everything. But it does not look likely. He, like you said, he's missed 9 of the last 10 games. The one game being against Tulsa at the Liacouras Center. So it sucks because I think if they have Mashburn and he doesn't miss a lot of this time or any of this time, they're probably a top 4, minimum top 5 team in this conference. And I think there is a realistic shot they make a run, but they don't. The X factor for me here is Quante Berry's health. If he can, get back to a little bit of his health he had before he missed a few games. I know he came back for this last game against North Texas on Sunday, but didn't play as much as he normally does. So he could be one where if he's playing well and he's coupled with Zion Stanford playing well in the backcourt, maybe they can pull off an upset here, but I don't think they can go to the finals again, unfortunately. But we will see there. All right, Cope. One more conference tournament to get into, and of course, it's the biggest one that we are going to talk about, and that is the Big East, our favorite conference here. Mountain West is close, though. We love the Mountain West, but the Big East is something different. Not, don't disrespect any other conferences, of course, but the Big East is something different. But regardless, Villanova is the 6th seed in the Big East Conference tournament, and they will be playing Seton Hall on Wednesday, the 11th seed. Not your father's Seton Hall team. The Seton Hall team is not very good. Although they played Villanova tough recently, Eric Dixon kind of willed them to a victory there. But this team's not very good. I do expect them to win this game. I do think, kind of like you mentioned, I think it was on last week's podcast or maybe on Spaces recently, but this Seton Hall team could out tough Villanova, and that could make things interesting. I think Sheen's going to have his guys ready for this one, but I do think Villanova ends up winning. And if they do, they would face 3-seeded UConn on Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Of course, all this taking place at Madison Square Garden, which makes it even better. But I think they have a real chance in that one too, Cope. Call me crazy. Obviously, things have not quite gone Villanova's way at all times this season, but they've played Villanova very well. A win over them at the Finn when they were ranked number 9 in the country. And then they were playing really well against them in Connecticut. Of course, they blew a 14-point second half lead. I believe they scored 6 points over the last 12 minutes, which was abysmal, of course, but still a game in which they should have won. Maybe you're looking at the season a little bit differently right now, but regardless, I think these two teams, in terms of their makeup, are very similar. They are both offensive-minded teams. Their defensive metrics are not very good. Their offensive metrics are pretty similar. UConn's is a little better, but I think this is a game that realistically they won't be favored, but I do think they can win, which would, of course, put them in the semifinal on Friday, potentially facing off against Creighton. Potentially, I don't know who the 7th seed is. Oh, Georgetown's the 7th seed, I think. Potentially facing off against Georgetown, which I don't know if I would want to see, but they have to get there first, Cope. So UConn game would be very interesting, but Villanova going into this Big East tournament, I think we're both in agreement on what will happen against Seton Hall. But your thoughts on that game, your thoughts on a third potential matchup against UConn, and from there, what could it be for this Villanova team?
Yeah, I do think they'll beat Seton Hall, but I think if there's a game that's played like it was at the Prudential Center, an ugly slugfest is exactly what Seton Hall is going to want. That's how they're going to win this game. That's how they've won essentially all their games. And well, it's not many, but that's what they do. They have to play a slow, grind it out defensive slugfest because they're not really they just have not shown that they're going to be able to make shots. And if a game like the last time they played happens. Seton Hall could win. I mean, Kyle, don't forget last year I was at the first round of the Big East tournament when Nova was the sixth seed, and DePaul was up on them in the second half. DePaul, which is like the worst Power Six team of all time, was
Yeah.
up on them in the second half. They won 3 games all of last year. So hopefully that doesn't happen. They come out flat, but I do think they'll win. However, if they were to win and move on to play UConn, pro UConn crowd going to be at the Garden. I don't think they'll win that one. They couldn't close it out in stores, which was unfortunate that they could have got the sweep over them, and it just didn't happen. Um, I don't have much hope for them. You know, the Georgetown loss was both Georgetown losses extremely deflating for them, and they basically happened the same way. And for me, like to carry that loss into the postseason, got to leave a really sour taste in their mouth. So I think they'll beat Seton Hall. I think they bow out against UConn. Then UConn charged up with the crowd, will make shots on them. Villanova made shots when they were at the Finn, and then just collapsed in that second half when they had to play up in Connecticut. So I think a potential coaching change on the horizon once the season is officially over for them. But there's just too much inconsistency here with finishing out games. I don't think you can win 3-4 games in this tournament the way that they've played, the way that they've fallen apart at the end when they've had games that they should win. I just don't think they're gonna. Seeing how they've had trouble closing, I don't think that they haven't shown me that they can close out 4 games in this tournament where they're probably going to have to play 2 or 3 of the premier teams. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody's getting past St. John's. At the Garden, the year they've had, I don't think anybody's going to beat them.
I don't either. I don't even want to say if there was one team, it'd be UConn. I don't know if I actually believe that, but that's also a place that gets fired up when the Huskies play there too. So potentially, but I do think obviously if that were a finals matchup, would be a pro St. John's crowd. But regardless, I want to agree with you. They're so inconsistent, and that's been the thing with them this entire season is that we don't know what version of this Villanova team we're getting, because we've seen them beat UConn, we've seen them put up a clinic against Marquette, we've seen them beat St. John's almost twice. You forget that game at the Garden was pretty close with about 3 minutes left, and then St. John's I think went on a 12-1 run to end the game or something like that. Um, so they've played well against good competition, especially in the Big East. But then they also have the blown lead to UConn, the blown leads to Georgetown, um, the disappointment against Providence at Providence. And I know we've talked about Dunk being a tough place to play, of course, but there's so many different sides to this Villanova team that we don't know what we're going to get. So I think they can play well enough to beat Seton Hall, although Kobe do bring up a good point with the pace and they can muck it up because for Villanova's offensive success, they're not a fast-paced team. They're 355th in pace in the country. Seton Hall's 324, so they're very similar pace teams. I could see that happening, like you said, where because they're just playing at such a slow pace and Seton Hall is just trying to muck it up. Like I could see Villanova falling into that trap. I do think they will end up winning the game, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if that does happen. But besides that, I think there's a chance they can beat UConn if they win. I don't bank on it. I don't think it will happen, which is unfortunate because I think the talent's there. But they, it's do or die right now for Kyle Neptune too as well. Like you said, I think a coaching change will be imminent once their season ends, unless of course they make a run here and make the NCAA tournament. I think that's the only way he keeps his job. But this might be Kyle Neptune's swan song in the Big Five and at Villanova. So look for that potentially as soon as well. But regardless, right now they have to focus on beating Seton Hall and then potentially matching up with UConn at the Garden this weekend, which to get into where we're going to be this weekend, I will be at the Garden either Friday, Saturday, or both, depending on which I can get up to, who's playing and what. Regardless, but I will be there. My first time covering a game at the Garden, so I am pretty excited about that. And I know you did the Big East tournament last year, and from all accounts, every year it's awesome, but especially from what you told me last year. So that's where I'm going to be at. Cope, I believe you're making another trip down to our neighboring city to the south. Is that correct?
And I'll be going to the neighboring city in the north as well.
Oh yeah.
Wednesday, going to be at Villanova Seton Hall. You're gonna love it, Kyle. I mean, the Big East tournament is the premier tournament during conference tournament week.
Yeah.
This is the star of the show. This is the creme de la creme right here is the Big East tournament. So I'll be there Wednesday. TBD Thursday. Thursday is either going to be if Villanova wins, there's a chance I'm up there. But if LaSalle beats UMass and we have LaSalle St. Joe's down in DC, I will be going down there. And then Friday, right after work, I'm headed back down to DC. Hopefully, knock on wood, there is a Big Five team playing deep into the A10 tournament. But if not, I'll be down there covering the semifinals and the championship game of the Atlantic 10 tournament for Mid-Major Madness. So I will be in our nation's capital for the weekend, Kyle, covering some hoops. So, and also I want to give myself a plug for Mid-Major Madness. I did put out a small feature story on Eric Reynolds breaking the all-time scoring record. I kind of tie up, you know, how do I phrase this? I tied up some loose ends on the Drexel season and kind of wrote a story on them losing to Towson, also just kind of wrapped the season up for them. So that should be coming out pretty soon. But yeah, I'm excited to be with them. They're awesome. What they do is awesome, highlighting all the mid and the low majors, which I'm happy to do in Philly with the Big Five teams, although they don't cover the Big East, so I don't cover Villanova. We'll be down there regardless there's a Big Five team or not for Mid-Major Meds covering the A10 tournament. So I will be putting a lot of miles on the car. Might be in New York twice. I'm certainly going to be in DC for the weekend. So I think, like I said, Kyle, I think I'm about 350, 360 miles if you include yesterday. We're going to see how far we can push that, if there's some trains in there as well. But sleep is going to be the premium, and the coffee and the energy drinks. Unfortunately, I'm breaking my hiatus on that just for this week,
I'm
but
gonna say
I'll
the energy drinks is gross,
be all over.
but I get it.
It's not glamorous, but you know what?
Gets the
It
job done.
works. They work. They work. I'll leave you with that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, kudos to you. That's incredible with the Mid-Major Madness. I know we've said that a couple times now, but keep on going. We love Mid-Major Madness. Obviously, we have Riley Frayne on quite a bunch. Hoping to talk to Sam Fetterman a little bit more too, which I was going to segue to my next point here, Cope. We have our bracket show again next week for our second annual one. So no episode from us next week because we're going to have our live bracket show, Brackets Eve, although we're doing it on Tuesday this year. So be on the lookout for that during the first 16 seed game on Tuesday night. 7:30 to 9 p.m. should wrap up right as the other playing game, whether it's 11 seeds or 12 seeds, playing in that one. So looking forward to bringing you guys that. We're going to have two or three guests on. I'm not going to spoil it just yet, but we got one confirmed one. Actually, we can talk about the confirmed one. It's our friend Anthony DeBundo over at The Ringer. He is a personal friend of Cope and I's, but also does great work with The Ringer for college basketball, soccer, baseball. He's the man. So we're excited to have him on. And then we got a couple more that we're trying to get as well. So announcement coming on the same day that this pod posts on Tuesday. It'll be 1 week from Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So be on the lookout for that. We would love for you guys to tune in, talk brackets with us. We're going to go over all of our picks, all of our reasonings. There should be some chaos like last year, me picking Auburn over UConn, which I thought was going to work. Cope still makes fun of me for it. I don't blame you. I'm sticking by it, though. It was a good leverage play, and we'll get into that on Tuesday as well, especially with DeBundo coming on. He'll talk about that, I'm sure. But be on the lookout for that, of course. One more thing, go buy Aaron Bracey's book, A Soaring Season, Incredible Inspiring Journey of the 2003-04 St. Joe's Hawks. I didn't get to do that last time because I left my book at my girlfriend's house, but I got it back now. So yes, go buy his book. Obviously, we're going to promote it every time we can, but I have not quite gotten the chance to crack it open yet, but should be doing that either here soon or at least once March is over, when we have a little more time on our hands. So yeah. And anyway, Cope, final thoughts here before we skate out and it's March. I mean, it's still March, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I've talked enough tonight. This is March.
This is
That's
March. All right, everybody. You know where to find us. YouTube, on social media at Big Five Pod, on Instagram and Twitter, and of course our audio-only versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. He's Jake Copestick. I'm Kyle Morello. We will see you next week for our live bracket show. Until then.